Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm William Tunner and this is a channel that I'm creating to follow the progress of me building an ultralight from scratch, so initial designs and calculations, to the full-on flying version of my own ultralight. Now, a little bit about me before we get started. I have no real background in aircraft design. I've done a bit of an aerospace engineering degree and some maths degree, and I am new to aircraft design. I've never designed an aircraft before, and this is my process of sharing with you how I've gone from basically scratch to designing an initial aircraft, doing it all in CAD design, and then hopefully building the plane and then flying the plane, and then the channel will continue from there with flying the plane as much as possible. So a little bit about the project. The project is going to be a single seat deregulated microlight built in the UK. Now, a single seat deregulated microlight is part of the UK aviation system, where if the microlight is under 300 kilograms and it holds a single pilot with a stall speed of under 35 knots, it is considered deregulated, and you do not need to go through the regulated process of getting your design approved, having an engineer assigned to your project from the Light Aircraft Association, and then doing all the test flights and everything like that. Now, having said that, whilst I am building a deregulated microlight, I strongly believe that the regulations are there for a reason, to keep everybody safe, and safety is my #1 priority when building this plane. From the start, when I start designing it, I'll have all the safety features that I've ever dreamt of to have in a plane put into the plane. So I will be following the BCAR Section S CAA regulations on microlight aircraft in the United Kingdom, even though I don't have to follow them. And this is just to make sure that I am ticking all of the boxes, and also in the future, if I ever want to create a kit plane out of this or sell the plans, I know that I'll be more confident selling something that I've designed if it meets the requirements of the United government. So with that little bit out of the way, with a little bit of an overview, I want to tell you a few of my goals and why I've decided to design a plane from the ground up and not take an already established kit plane and build it and then fly it. So one of the main reasons that I didn't take an already established kit plane is because I didn't really feel confident in any of the kits and how they met my specific requirements and satisfaction. I've researched many different kit options available. Initially started out with Vans aircraft, which is the obvious kit for a lot of people, and what I found was that it was between the RV8 and the RV14A, and the reason why I decided to not go down that path was because to build the dream plane that I wanted to build, and to build the dream RV plane that I wanted to build, the budget that I would have to have was just too big. And I will save that project for later in life when I have a bit more cash to spare. I can really go into what I want in the plane and have more experience to make the modifications that I would feel comfortable with if I wanted to fly that plane. Now, there's plenty of microlights out there, and I didn't initially consider building a microlight, but the reason what changed my mind is finding out that we have a single seat deregulated market in the United Kingdom. And for a first time builder, not having to worry about the stress and hard work of having to hire engineers to produce reports in order to get regulation in the UK, which is a slightly different way it works in the United States, where you have an experimental category. In the United Kingdom, we don't have an experimental category, we have a permit to fly. And to guarantee yourself for a permit to fly, you have to pass all of the regulations, just as you would for a certified aircraft. It's just a little bit cheaper. So with that in mind, I started looking at the existing kits for the single seat deregulated microlights, and the one that came up the most was the SD1 Mini Sport plane. So I started to explore this plane a lot, and I really loved it, and I really loved the design and the feel and the lookout of this plane. However, what I found, the more research that I did, there was a few things that I didn't really like about the plane. The design didn't feel quite up to my safety standards that I would expect from a kit plane. The support didn't seem quite there. I had back and forths with the owner of that company and not really felt satisfied with the responses that I was getting, enough so that I would delve into the project with that company. It's a wooden aircraft. I have nothing against wooden aircraft. I think they're amazing. I think wood has been a staple part of general aviation for many years, but this aircraft in particular didn't really have much crashability, and we'll talk about that in a later episode. It's basically just the survival chances if you crashed into the ground, and how the aircraft is built specifically to deal with that situation. And I felt that the interior and the cockpit design and the instrumentation that I wanted in the aircraft wouldn't fit. And I played around with the cockpit designs and things like that with that aircraft, and I found that I wasn't quite satisfied. So that kind of led me onto the idea of how can I modify that plane? And the more and more I looked into modifying that plane, it felt more and more evident to me that it was better to design my own plane from the ground up, and that will give me more control and more satisfaction with the final result. So what I found was that I had new desires through this whole process of discovering what I wanted in a plane and how I was going to go about building it, whether it be from a kit, etc. And I found that I was excited about the idea of building my own plane from scratch, and potentially in the future turning it into a business of selling the kits, molds, etc. So having decided to build my own plane from scratch, I started to look for more inspiration, and I came across a video by the Arnold company. Now it's the AR5 and the AR6 which really inspired me to produce my own aircraft, and specifically out of composites. With the low weight requirements and the specifications that I wanted for my plane, with 300 kilograms being the maximum takeoff weight allowable in that single-seated deregulated microlight class, I really had to get creative with thinking about how I can include all of the safety aspects that I want and desire in a plane, all of the equipment and all of the functionality I want out of a plane, but also having a good useful load. And that meant being a bit more creative with the materials and the structure of the aircraft that I wanted to use. So composites tends towards the lighter side if it's designed properly, simply because it uses fewer parts and the material is lighter for a stronger finish. And what I found was that the construction methods for me made more sense with composites. I'd always seen aluminium aircraft such as the Vans kits, and many other aircraft are built through aluminium. But what I found was the very complex designs and the way the parts had to fit together to make it structurally sound. I found that the idea of a mold and a plug and building a plug and molds for parts just feels more natural to me, and I can get my head around it better when designing the aeroplane. So now that's a brief overview of the goals and why I set out to build my own microlight. The kind of timeline I'm looking at the moment, I am going to spend the next 6 to 12 months in the design process, really making sure that I have a solid design that's being checked by external sources, experts, and people who know a lot more than I do. And throughout that whole process, I'm going to document every single stage, from the initial maths, figuring out wing areas and aerodynamic design of the wings, and also aerofoil decisions, etc., to initial designs, and then putting it into the CAD software, where I'm going to be using Onshape CAD to develop and design the whole aircraft from the initial designs. And then once I've finished designing, I will run all of the aerodynamic tests on the softwares and the load and static tests, and then I will go about building a prototype, and that will be done in the United Kingdom. So now that you know what I'm going to be doing, here's what you can expect in the future. I'm going to be producing a video every 2 weeks, and with these videos I'm going to be breaking down a different topic every 2 weeks. And you can also follow along on my blog at willtunner.co, and also you can check out my Patreon page, where you'll find access to exclusive content, live streams, Q&As, exclusive documents, and lots more. It's just go and checking out. It's all in the link description below. And as I said, the next video is going to be about basic design and inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure that if you are interested in following this journey that I'm embarking on, make sure to hit the like button below so everybody else can see it, and also click the subscribe button. And I'll see you in 2 weeks' time for the next video. Thank you very much.